think back in time, go back 60 years, and visualize the Long Creek somewhere between Main Mall Road and Foden Road. And a summer day, there's a boy, a 10-year-old boy, and his dog. They're walking down a bank, there's woods, walks down the little wooded path, and he comes to grass, and then there's ferns, and then he reaches the stream, and the stream is babbling over some rocky areas, there's sandy areas. The water is perfectly clear, you could see to the bottom. There's bugs landing on the water, in the water. So it's a beautiful, happy day for the boy and his dog. Fast forward 60 years and go down to the stream, you find a tire in the stream, a shopping cart, and hypodermic needles.
The primary stressor in Long Creek is actually just urbanization, and that has a lot of secondary consequences. There's actually a scientific concept called the urban stream syndrome, which talks about all the different things that happens when you urbanize a watershed and how that affects the streams that drain that watershed.
Those stressors can be chemical, so the types of chemicals that would be found on the landscape. They can be heavy metals, petroleum hydrocarbons, chlorides are actually a big issue now, increasingly becoming a big issue. Temperature can be a real issue as a result of the pavement that becomes heated during the summertime, so that changes the temperature in the stream when the runoff is heated. Hydrology is the amount and the volume and the speed with which water drains off the landscape. All of those things can be stressful for the organisms that live in the stream.
So originally, Long Creek had the opportunity during larger rain events to move and meander through its floodplain, but over the years of development, that floodplain has been encroached upon by construction such as parking lots, building, roadways, and that type of thing.
So the more impervious surface or pavement or rooftop that we put in the landscape, the faster and more volume the water is that gets into Long Creek. So that physical impact would be felt at the level of the organisms that live in the stream in what's called kind of like a fire hose effect.
The aquatic life is affected by all of these changes along the stream because in particular the macroinvertebrates, or the larval stages of insects, basically reside in the stream channel. And with this faster moving flow as a result of the constriction of the floodplain, these macroinvertebrates have a harder time holding on to the substrate.
This is really the first major stream restoration project of its kind in the Long Creek Watershed Management, and it's an example of a fairly rare kind of restoration, which is a project that focuses on restoring habitat in an urban stream. The project's primary purpose is to create a place for the organisms that should be living in Long Creek to live. We're having to put physical objects in the floodplain, and among other things putting what are called root wads, where they take a large tree and drive the trunk of the tree into the ground with a large piece of the root sticking up above ground. And those root wads act as a roughness surface in the floodplain that when the water swirls around it, it'll burn up some of the energy of rapidly moving water and slow the water down a little bit, and thereby reduce erosion further downstream.
The wood also adds to the flow complexity in the stream so that you have areas of faster moving water that help to oxygenate the stream, and you also have areas of slower moving water that the macroinvertebrates can reside in without the threat of fast moving water.
In addition to the wood that we're putting in the stream, we're installing gravel mounds as well, and that kind of replenishes or renourishes the stream to pull back some or to gain back some of the gravel that has been blasted out by the fire hose effect that's happened as a result of all that impervious area. And then finally, we're also reclaiming some of the floodplains. A floodplain is an area that's on the side of the stream bank that allows the stream to escape its bank and get out into an area where it can dissipate some of its energy.
So as you look at the physical site at the project, there's lots of barriers of tree logs and things like that put down across the stream, and you think that can't be good. Well, it turns out that's exactly what streams need. A stream in Maine is as much a product of the forest that surrounds it as it is the product of the stream channel itself. And the stream ecosystem depends on roughness in the stream, logs, trees, boulders, things like that that affect water flow to generate the kinds of microhabitats that insects and fish really care about.
Other methods that we're using or approaches that we're using are non-structural practices, and what I mean by that are the practices that might include street sweeping, which would remove the pollutants that are attached to the fine particulates that get into the street dust, catch basin cleaning, so all of the sediment and material that gets washed into catch basins, which is part of the drainage system that hold on to some of the grit, those accumulate sediment and those are being cleaned really frequently. And then also inspections of parcels. So going out onto the parcels, inspecting them, working directly with the property managers to inform them about the things that they can do on their own parcels to reduce the impact to pollutants that would potentially get into Long Creek.
The Long Creek Watershed Management District is a public-private partnership between local towns and local businesses that work together to protect water quality and to improve water quality.
The majority of participants in this effort and in the Long Creek watershed, within those 4 communities, have decided to pool their efforts and resources to do this collectively.
It was a very innovative approach that the 4 municipalities involved got together to form the Long Creek Watershed Management District to implement this plan on a watershed basis, which allows us to essentially erase those geopolitical lines and really address the issues with the watershed on the way that the watershed works, not the way that geopolitical lines work. This project slates into the larger construction schedule as kind of the final and kind of keystone restoration element to that Long Creek Watershed Management Plan.
We need to understand and appreciate what happened to the Long Creek to promote the health of our city in the future. The issue of the Long Creek isn't just a little piece of brook between 2 roads. It's a watershed that feeds into a pond that used to allow children to swim and people to catch fish, and that feeds into the sea. So you could see that the systems interact, smaller with larger, to our planet. So this is a very critical example for our city and how we grow and become sustainable in the future.